Okay, I discovered Talking Tree a couple of years ago when I was doing some research for my Calgary Living Arts Center, and I love how things are all coming full circle right now in meeting everyone from Activate Us and Michael Tellinger last year. I think it's amazing how everyone that has a very similar idea of how we want to create the new earth, we're all finding our way to each other. And now that I've connected with David, I found out that he was also part of the North Frontenac One Small Town initiative as well. So David is the founder and visionary behind the Talking Trees holistic community design. He began building conventional houses when he was 15 years old and spent the next 18 years mastering the industry or mastering his skills. After attending the Earthship Biotexture Academy in 2015, he gave up his carpentry business to pursue his calling of off-grid buildings. He then quickly realized that building an earthship for himself and his family was not enough to protect his children and the natural world that we all see struggling. He knew that a community of holistically minded earthship dwellers, I love that, was the solution. Given the difference in climate between Canada and the birthplace of the Earthship, which is in New Mexico, David reassessed the Earthship design with what we have here, the northern climate in Canada, and he calls his version the Earthship Holistic Homes. So in pursuit of his dreams, David worked alongside Michael Tellinger, again with the One Small Town movement in North Frontenac, which unfortunately, as we all know, did not manifest as planned. So thanks to that experience, though, the community design and the people behind it were able to open to the idea of sovereignty. David is a father of two with one on the way. Congratulations, David. And these three reasons why we know he will never give up on his vision that the creator gave to him. So thank you so much for being here, David. You've been most generous in sharing your ideas and your plan and your model with me. And I just love what you are creating. And I'm sure our members are going to be learning a lot about what is truly possible. So the room is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a good intro. I don't use the word Earthship anymore. Michael Reynolds has asked me not to use that word anymore, so I started developing holistic homes. And holistic is a buzzword, but not to me. And as we walk through the presentation, there's a video at the end that's going to bring everything together, but the presentation is more how the thinking for me had to come in order to even start addressing communities. And I hear people use the term off-grid community or sustainable community or intentional community. I can't think of a single community that's not an intentional community, otherwise it wouldn't exist. So those are kind of words I'm trying to avoid. Holistic is the view of everything while looking at the importance of the interdependence of every single aspect of the community. At the beginning, I'm always really excited. My voice is going to shake. This is why I was sent here, but it'll smooth out as we go through this. So I want to thank everybody for sharing the most precious resource you have, your time here tonight. Your time is the most precious thing you have. And I thank you for sharing it with me. And I'm going to get the party started. Is that coming up properly?
Yes, it is. It looks great. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah, I built for 18 years in the conventional realm, and I realized I wasn't getting any farther ahead. I was enslaving people into mortgages that once they paid off, they would have to get another mortgage to renovate their home that's hooked up to life support systems with ever increasing costs. So after the Earthship Academy, that was an eye-opening, life-changing experience. I did come back. I gave up the contract I had in Ottawa and focused solely on buildings that didn't need life support systems. And that evolved into the community. I think in 2017 is when contributionism came about, and I met Cindy and started working with her. We were already talking with the mayor in North Frontenac, and all of a sudden Michael Tellinger came into the picture and everything seemed to click. And anybody who's seen Cindy and Ray's presentation, she's absolutely right. It was perfect for what it was, and we learned all the things that we needed to learn from that experience. So I don't think it failed. It was exactly what we needed at the time to get us to where we are today. So I've been studying because I didn't know much about this group when I was contacted by Karen. But there's a few videos that I went through, and every single one of these videos has aspects that are already incorporated into the community. The best way I can think to describe how the community functions is as a private membership. Contract makes the law, so common law. So anything we agree on, that's what creates the community. You are not a person. That was wonderful. I studied with White Walking Feather. I saw Cindy put a link to his classes in there as well. And now there's a man in Ontario, Christopher James, and his site is A Warrior Calls. He's doing amazing work. I personally don't have any of the benefits from the system. I don't have a driver's license. I don't have a health card. I don't have a birth certificate. I don't have bank accounts. I don't have a cell phone. I don't have any of those things that they lure us in with anymore. And that's been in the last 3 years that I've gotten rid of all those things. So I can really speak from a place where I don't have those benefits. I am still hooked up to the grid. I do still need gas in my car. I do still buy food at the grocery store. So there's certainly many ways that I'm not free, but as far as the person goes, that has been addressed for me. Cindy and Ray and the bridge, it was amazing at the end of their presentation. I can't remember what the woman's name was, but she read off another woman's question, and it was, how do we address what's coming as early as this fall? There's I'm sure everybody on this call is well aware of what's going on in the world the last 2 years and how fast things are changing month to month now. And Ray answered honestly and said, this should have been started 20 years ago. And I agree. There's so many amazing things that if we started them a decade or two ago, then we would be in a different place, but we haven't. So now time, the most precious resource, is even more precious because every day we're not doing something and still in that system and still supporting their system is one day less that we're preparing to be independent and interdependent. And I don't mean to cause fear, but I believe we're running out of time to make that transition. I saw the creating intentional communities, and the one with Theo Fleury and the pathogen were amazing because trauma is such a big part of the current system and how they keep people in it through trauma. So all of these things have been incorporated in one way or another into a blueprint for holistic community design. So I'm not going to come here and say everybody should move to Ontario where I am. I want to offer a framework that people can use wherever they are and modify however they all agree to design a community. And I'm going to go through what I believe is required for what we're looking for. So the first thing is, where do we start? And to know that, we have to know what the goal is. And for me, the goal is very simple, and it's been this way for the last decade, and it's freedom. Anybody that saw the Freedom Convoy go through their town, I was lucky enough to live 20 minutes outside of Ottawa and got to be there a lot. It's another buzzword, but it's absolutely necessary. Just like in Braveheart, what will you do without freedom? There's nothing you can do without it. So this is the goal of the community design in order to get us to actual freedom. But since it's a buzzword, I'd like to start somewhere else. And that's the definition of a slave. And debt is the slavery of the free. And I think most people are aware of that. So I wanted to go into understanding the language before we get into what I'm going to talk about. One who has owned his property of someone else, especially in involuntary servitude. So I would say anybody who has a person over them would fall under this category right away. One who is subservient to or controlled by another. We're not in control of our food. We're not in control of our fuel. We're not even in control of heating or cooling our houses. So I would guess that most people on this call would fall under this one as well, including myself. One who is subject to or controlled by a specific influence. I think we all fall under these categories. And whether we like to admit it, living in Canada, we're not free here. We'll go into the definition of freedom. And the reason I put ease here, and I'll get into ease right before, right at the end of the presentation, is because the currency system is the form of control that's being used today. The condition of not being in prison or captivity. I don't know if we're allowed to leave Canada now unless we're injected. So certainly this is a giant prison colony at the moment. The condition of being free of restraints, especially the ability to act without control or interference by another or by circumstances. There's lots of examples of this, but for me, we just built a greenhouse not far from here, and there were no permits, there was no government permission, there was no insurance, there was nothing like that for the building because I took responsibility for the building. If anything happens to the building, I'm responsible for it. But most people don't believe they can do things without permission. I remember another community presentation that was on Life Force Canada, and she was discussing not having water rights on their land in BC or Calgary. And that was just staggering to me, that we accept that we have to ask permission to access the water on our own property. The condition of not being controlled by another nation or political power. And I mean, the last 2 years or 2.5 years is an example. We're right now in this moment, we are not free. I believe every single one of us here, including myself, is actually a slave. Now that we comprehend the difference between those two, I think we all have a choice to make. And this is going to seem really simple for a moment, but freedom or slavery. And we all have that choice to make right now. Now, it's not just that simple. I want to be free or I'm going to stay in the system. For me, in order to address this stuff, I needed to know where I'm standing. I need to know where I come from, and I need to know how I got here. So, like I said, I'm just outside of Ottawa. So we're going to jump back a few hundred years. And this is what this land looked like in 1655. There was no government controlling the whole landmass. It was a whole bunch of individual nations or communities that managed themselves and each had their own area. So New France showed up and took about 3% of the land in 1655. 100 years later, Great Britain showed up, and now we have about 20% of the land. And anybody who's familiar with the wampum belt, we agreed to live side by side these people. So every time I hear people talk about a parallel society, I hope it's not just that we need to build a new one, but we also need to address what's happening in this society now, because they're not going to just let us be a parallel society. They've made those agreements in the past and they've broken them. This is about when Canada, the corporation of, was founded, and we have about 30% of the land now. And this is what it looks like today. So this is the soil that I'm standing on. And if I don't comprehend that we had to show up, lie, steal, and murder in order to get this corporation that we call Canada, then I'm not going to be able to actually free myself from this system that I'm in. I'll just put them all together here for a sec. It only took a few hundred years, and we know what they're doing today. So why did these people and their culture need to be all but wiped out when they agreed that we could live side by side? Because no one would live like this if this was an option. And I might put some holistic homes in there instead of teepees, but I don't think, I was standing right here in front of these guys. I don't think anybody would accept the type of life we have today if this version was still visible in our countryside. So it had to be completely obliterated. Anything built without addressing the foundation, and our current foundation looks like this. It's built on lies, deceit, and rubble. It's built on the complete destruction of another people. And this is basically what the current system looks like today. It may be a little shinier and look a little better, but this is where we stand today. So how, even someone like me, how are we supporting this system? It's supported by each and every one of us with our most precious assets, our time. We have a finite amount of time. We're not getting any more back. They're not making any more. I know some people are saying, no, not me. Yes, you too. And if you're wondering how, your time gets exchanged for money, no matter what you're doing. If you're not doing something for money, like we're all sitting here today, there is a massive infrastructure that has to exist in order for us to be on computers communicating countrywide. There's a massive system that we don't have a say in and we don't have control over. And that's because right now everything's inverted. And some of you may have seen this this slide before, and it's a perfect example of how they've been, every single thing is the upside down. Every single thing is inverted right now. God is either at the bottom or he doesn't exist. Men are below government, all their legal fictions and all the legal corporations. So this needs to be flipped upside down the way it's supposed to be, with God at the top and every man and woman above every other single thing that we create. Everything we create is a servant to us. We are not a servant or slave to it. And I believe anybody who's been a part of this group knows things about the unlawful conversion at birth and legal persons and all that stuff. Now that I know what's happening, and now that I know where I'm standing, I can start from scratch, because anything I build on that crumbling foundation is going to fall apart, or it's not going to make a difference either. So it's time to build a new foundation. And this is actually the one, those are two of my sons there. This is actually the greenhouse that we built just outside of Ottawa last year. So I've studied lots of intentional communities, and there's lots of guidelines or rules or agreements. These are our three guidelines or rules or agreements. Every building needs to be 6 principles strong. So it is the same as the Earthship. Anybody who's unfamiliar with the Earthship, I'll go into it in a slide farther down. Do no harm, cause no loss. You could call that natural law. You could call that universal law, but you don't trespass against another. And every single thing that is done needs to be thought about from the perspective of 7 generations from now, 150 to 175 years from now. What is our decision today going to, how is our decision today going to affect that? So those are the foundational beliefs, like the Amish. The Amish, they have the church at the center, and that's where they all come together, and that's a belief and a structure that they all share. So a belief structure for any community is very important. These are our 13 foundational elements of holistic community design. These could change depending where you are, and I imagine these could change over time, but for right now and for where I'm sitting, these are the 13 things that are most important to address. And I'm going to go through them quickly here, and then I'm going to go into each one a little further. So the design and development and evolution of the community, day-to-day operations and management, housing and structures, the gardens, farming, food, energy, education, wellness, community projects, communication, decision-making, conflict resolution, and common law, energetic exchange, and the record knowledge keeper. Now, this is something Cindy actually helped me with. We were trying to figure out the physical structure of how decisions would be made. So we have a business plan, and it has all the things that are to be purchased, built, the order they're to be built in. But anytime you need to go away from that business plan, there's a representative from each one of these groups that gets to meet, and they bring the concerns of everybody they work with to these 13, and they get to discuss how to move forward. So in the center is the Council of Elders, which is these 13 different areas of the community. Each one of them has the most respected, most knowledgeable person in that area making the decision. And that is someone chosen by the community. We all know Frank is really good with healing or physical trauma. We know we want him in charge of that. We respect him, we know him. And then I put a list of some of the other aspects of the community that fit into each of these 13 aspects. And each one of these would have someone that's in charge of each aspect of this, and they would communicate with the 13, and that's where the decisions get made. And it looks, this is from the Matrix, but it's perfect. This is exactly what it looks like. Everybody in the community can be there, they get to listen, they get to speak up, and the decisions are made. All right, we'll go into the 13 aspects. So this is obviously representational. The only way a community would actually get built in a circle like this is if you bulldozed everything and didn't respect the piece of land you showed up at all. So this is just representational. You need to figure out your goals and the needs of the community. And this will be different for everybody. You need to figure out the size. For me, I don't know how I ended up on it. It's kind of like a musician getting a song. Some things just came to me and I had to write them down as fast as I could. So for the size, there's 144 lots. That could be 300 to 500 people. I don't think I would ever want it to get any bigger, because then you start losing contact, or not contact, connection with those people. But any smaller, and you may not have the diversity of talents, skills, passions that you would need to fulfill all the needs of the people in the community. So once you got to 144 home sites, or about 500 people, you'd start another one. So you wouldn't expand this, because I don't think that works. I think that's what we tried to do now, keep expanding, and I don't think that works. So the land size is a big consideration for me. I don't want humans to overwhelm the space that they're in. So I don't believe that we should take up more than 1/3 of any area that we're in. So if there's 144 lots and we pretend they're an acre each, then we want at least a 450 acre piece of land. That's so we have enough space for nature, enough natural space, enough space to be managing resources, lumber resources, stone, water, all the things we need to live and build with. And land features. I've had so many opportunities to buy land without water, but if it doesn't have water, it's not going to work for me. The land I look for needs to have living water on it. That's just an aspect that I need in the community. Everybody needs water. It's a beautiful mental health feature, and we live in the Land O'Lakes area anyways, so that is definitely something that I incorporate into it. I also look for land surrounded by crown land. 89% of Canada is crown land. They won't give it up because that's how important land is. If you don't have a place to grow your food and build your home, then you're owned. So they've maintained 89% of Canada as crown land, but I look for that land around private land as a buffer and an expansion for resources. And we want to make sure we can meet everybody's individual needs. Day-to-day operations. This is just management. I mean, it's the simplest way might be to think of a condo. All the same things you have to take care of in a condo. You gotta cut the grass, and you gotta manage the condos. We call them home fire sites because it's impossible to own land, so we don't sell land. Manage rental buildings, cut the grass, plow the roads, all that stuff. There's so much to this. I can't even do anything but scratch the surface here. So this is one of the holistic homes I designed. There's some good videos on our YouTube channel for anybody interested in looking into how the buildings are evolved. But these are the 6 building principles that every building must have. And they must have it because they can. We've been building the same way for 100 or 150 years, just like cars. It's fancy steam train technology. We're not being allowed to advance. So the fact that homes are still hooked up to life support systems makes no sense to me when there are so many examples of buildings that don't need them out there, and so many examples of buildings that go so far beyond just not needing life support systems, like growing food and catching water and treating sewage and using up some of the world's garbage. Like we can do so much better than this. So these people, their circle would manage all these things: the design, evolution, construction, maintenance, education. So everything's wrapped up in each one of these. There's always an education aspect to every aspect of the community. I'm not going to read through these. I believe this will be recorded and posted, and people can go through these after, but it's just, each one of these areas has their things that they're responsible for. So gardens, seeds, crops, orchards, community food, and it may seem the same as the last one, but it's not. This is more focused on meals, managing food stores, and managing our seeds. Energy. Energy is very important, and at $2 a liter, I think we're all learning how expensive energy can get. So the holistic homes basically take care of themselves with very minimal systems. They do this because heating and cooling is 50% of your energy in your home, and if it's passive, you only need half the amount of power. So these homes reduce the amount of solar or wind or whatever you'd be using. So they're very simple to power. But something like the wood or metal shop that has a whole bunch of 240 volt tools and equipment running all the time, you could get into a whole 2-hour-long discussion about all the energy systems that are out there. But for me, I'm trying to bring it back to the way the indigenous were before we got here, mixed with today. So it's 300 years ago mixed with hot showers is what we're trying to blend here. So as much as people like to, like the Venus Project is very high tech, that doesn't appeal to me personally. I'm not interested in living that way. So these type of buildings, just like the Romans, would be placed beside waterways because water is a very powerful source of energy. Another reason I look for water on land, on land for the community. Education. I made it to grade 7 before I stopped going to school, which may be why I'm less indoctrinated than most people, and was homeschooled from there, and then knew I wanted to build homes and started doing that full time when I was 15. I think we have complicated education. Education means to bring out from within. That's all education means. And I wonder how many teachers actually know the etymology of that word. All kids need is guidance and support. Maybe there's a spot to sit down and do some math and writing once in a while, but they're learning math and writing out in life anyways as well. So I personally, I'm not interested in designing new curriculums. I'm not interested in a whole bunch of sit down classes. What I am interested in is mentors, being with a few kids and letting the kids decide what aspect of the community they want to observe that day. Do they want to go learn how to plant seeds that day and then go see the people building a home? Do they want to go learn how to take care of the horses? Do they want to learn how to do the energy systems? Every single thing they just pick up because that's life. So I think education needs to be a lot more simple than most of us are taught it needs to be these days. Margaret Mead, lovely. Children must be taught how to think, not what to think. I think we spend way too much time teaching them what to think, and we don't spend any time teaching them how to think, which is probably how we got to the situation we're in today. This is the Phoenix Community Center. It's based on Earthship principles. It faces south, it heats and cools itself, yada, yada, yada. This is a 4-level building that'll go up a mountainside. And I'm going to read this one. The Wellness Center is not one building or space, but a group of buildings and spaces, each supporting the other. While I see the whole community itself as an incredible space and tool for healing, these other individual spaces will include a physical trauma center, spiritual center, emotional center, plant-based medicines, birthing center, and overall health and wellness spaces. I feel like health and wellness is something we make far too complicated as well. I believe the majority of dis-ease comes from the way we live and the society we live in. I don't believe there'll be much of that when people are living in balance again. There'll still be physical traumas, and we have a lot of healing to do over the next couple generations. But I think wellness will just become how we live rather than something we need to treat. Community projects. So there's a lot of 5 years ago, contributionism was something I was trying to add to the community. Now the aspects that I found useful are completely incorporated into the community. And that's why it's a holistic approach now rather than an Earthship community trying to incorporate contributionism. And community projects are a huge part of it. So these are just maybe some of the first community projects that are very important. We need to be able to deal with our own waste. We need to be able to build as much of our own stuff as possible, and a wood shop and a metal shop will allow us to do that. And I imagine there's talented people on this call tonight that, if given the tools and the facilities, could build us amazing homes, amazing furniture, energy machines, art. We can't even start to get into it because most of us are spending most of our time in the other world. But imagine having access to the tools and equipment you need whenever you get an idea. And that was something in the Garbage Warrior documentary. She said when the county came into Taos, they lost the ability to dream a dream and build it the next day. And that is definitely sorely missing from society today. Almost, am I frozen? Why is this not moving? What? Yeah, it's not moving. Okay, there we go. Communication, decision-making, conflict resolution, and common law. This is something that we learned so much about during our North Frontenac time and how important it is to the continuity of a community. So communication is the first thing that needs to be applied when anything arises. It's very important when it comes to decision-making, and we've talked very vaguely about the Council of Elders and all the representatives of each community project outside that. Then you have, if a conflict arises, you need some way to resolve the conflict, and going to a liar or a lawyer or some man or woman dressed in a costume and a robe is not the way that people here are going to resolve conflict. So I am certain, and I know of people already that are, this is exactly what they were sent to Earth to do, was to be able to mediate conflicts, because we have not been taught this in school or in life. This is something that is going to be one of the biggest challenges for us. And then common law. So common law is contract makes the law. Any two people of consenting age can agree on anything they want to agree on. And that's the same way that the community works. If you're of reasonable mental health, you can decide if you want to be part of a community or not. Right now, we don't have any choice like that. And maybe the strangest one that most people haven't thought of is a record or knowledge keeper. And there are so many reasons that we should and need to keep track of our history. Now, it doesn't need to be nearly as bloated as the government does, but many of the Indigenous did it through stories. I imagine we'll do it through stories and bookkeeping, but I imagine there will be many people in the community keeping a history of how it grows and what was happening and who showed up. And finally, I think, is this the last? This might be, no, maybe there's one after this, but this is the most important aspect of the community, period, for me. All this is just from my perspective. This presentation is supposed to allow people to take these ideas and apply them to their lives or communities they'd like to build. So again, I got this like Michael Jackson got Thriller. It just got sent to me and I had to write it down as fast as I could. And then I worked on it later, but ease is energetic exchange. And I'll go into why we need something like this. And I'm sure we've all read this quote, but I want to read it again because it's important. I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. Absolutely. And anybody who is unaware of the control that the finances have over us right now has not been paying attention. This is the key to freedom. Absolutely. And it doesn't need to be like this. This just happened to be the thing that came to me. Now, the difference with this is it's not based on some made up amount of money or gold or silver or crypto. This is based on time. The only thing, and we could get crazy and semantic and argue about time, that it can be manipulated, but really, this is the only thing that can't be manipulated. A minute is a minute, an hour is an hour, and it's going to be that way for a long time. So there's no inflation, there's no deflation. You can't tax time. You're not exchanging. Right now, we exchange our time for currency. Why? because that's the only way they can control us. Let's just leave our time, and then nobody can interfere in it. And I'm not gonna go into each of these. There's a whole bunch of, beautiful mathematics and creatures and all kinds of good stuff in here, but people can go back and look at that if they like. The important aspect of this is this: comparing the forms of exchange. And I heard someone again mention maybe in the bridge presentation, how do we address this? So I put crypto, fiat, precious metals, trade and barter. Now, everybody can read this, so I'm just going to skim along this quick. And again, you can go back and look if you like. Energetic exchange is based physically. Crypto is digital. Fiat can be both right now. Precious metals is physical, and trade and barter can be physical. Backed by your time. Crypto is backed by a belief and fiat currency. Fiat is backed purely by belief and nothing else. Precious metals are backed by mining and the market, which can be manipulated as well as mining. And trade and barter is the promise of the other person. Has fees? No. Everything else, yes, except for barter. Barter does come very close. Taxable? Not possible. Crypto, fiat, precious metals, you guys can all read this as we go. Complexity of use, usury. Everybody can go through these if they want, but there is nothing about crypto, fiat, precious metals, or trade and barter that addresses the situation we're in at all. And I'm just going to skip to this one because this really says it all. Requirements for use and creation. So energetic exchange needs paper, printing, design, and power. Crypto needs grid power, computers, a global network, huge corporations, data centers, fiat currency, fictional person, government ID, etc., advanced programming, bank accounts, etc. So and this is where I tend to rub people a little in the wrong way, but look at all the things that you need for crypto to exist. It's not the answer. It's based off fiat, which needs governments, banksters, tax agencies, huge corporations, fictional persons, blah, 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 for it to exist. Precious metals need nuclear power, at least. Mining, heavy equipment, industrial processing, casting, huge corporations, industrial waste, etc. Trade and barter is an agreement. So it's the simplest version of that. The challenge with trade and barter is, how does someone who builds homes like myself trade for a pair of shoes? That's where trade and barter really gets, it doesn't work for a lot of things, but it does work for a lot of things. So you could do it in conjunction with ease. Other than trade and barter, energetic exchange is the only thing controlled by you. And the value of it cannot be manipulated. An hour is an hour, a day is a day. That's not going to change anytime soon. So I highly recommend going back and going through these two slides and really getting a good comprehension of how these need to be addressed in order for anybody to properly move ahead. Because if these aren't addressed, you're on the same crumbled foundation from the beginning of the slide. So that overview from a mile high that we just went through brings us basically to this. And again, this is just a representation. We're not going from zero to hero. We're not going from fiat currency to no currency. Right now, we are in the fiat currency system, and that's what we all have invested in. That's how we have our houses, our cars, etc. So in order to buy the land, build the infrastructure, build the community buildings, have access to all the tools and equipment, this is how much each space costs in the community in order for you to have every single thing you need to create from that point on. And this is, prices are insane right now. So this is well below anything you even find unless you go way up north. And I'm going to wrap it up here with Margaret again. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. I'm going to play about 9 or 10 minutes of a video where you can see an actual piece of land about 2.5 hours from me. It's as far from Ottawa as you can get before you start getting closer to Toronto. It's 511 acres. It's for sale right now. And I was able to build a 3D model of the community using a video game. The buildings in the model are botanical gardens that happen to be in the games. They worked perfectly for what I was trying to represent as holistic homes or earthships or whatever they are, but they're about twice the size that I imagine the average home would be, but they're a perfect representation. So hopefully I have no idea what time it is, but hopefully there's time for questions after, and I hope you enjoy.
So great. I wanted everyone to see that video, your 3D model, for such a long time. So thank you for everything you shared. And everything you talk about is exactly what we've been talking about for the past 2 years. So it's just great to see how far you've come and what you're doing. And I know that there's going to be so many questions here. So you still have time, obviously, for Q&A.
Q&A is always my favorite part because the truth doesn't hide from questions. That's how it's got to the point that it's got to, from presentations and people asking questions. I just want everybody to know that tonight was absolutely Karen's fault. I didn't have a presentation built. She brought all of this out and I built it in the last week. So hopefully that video's out there and people can take from it what they want, and she has the business plan people can take and use as they see fit, and hopefully it'll look like the Indigenous map in 1655, and there'll be no more Canada, just a bunch of beautiful communities, each guiding themselves soon.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, David. Marika.
That was so inspirational. Thank you, Karen and David and everybody who's worked to keep bringing more information. David, I have a specific question in reference to you saying that you worked really hard to step outside the system. And one thing you said is that nobody can own land. I personally looked into allodial title and how that can be gained. Can I ask you, are you doing this through private membership trusts? And is that how you're working the land portion of it?
Awesome question. These are going to be great questions. If we look back at the pyramid slide, God, what universe, whatever you want to call it, created this place we are. We don't get to own any part of something we didn't create. So there's no land ownership, is make believe. It's the same as the fictional person that we cloak ourselves in when we go into a courtroom. The invention of property is, up until very recently, I saw it as a reasonable thing, but the very invention of the word property, I believe, has led us to the insanity, much of the insanity that we're in now. So that piece of property that you saw in the video is an actual piece of property. It's 2.5 hours from here. It's for sale right now. It looks exactly like it looked in the video without all the buildings, because it takes a group of people to make this happen, not just one guy. Dances with Wolves was an amazing movie. Kevin Costner had the vision, he wrote the story, and he played in it, but without every single other person that it took to make that movie, it would have been nothing. So I just have my piece, and without all the rest of the people bringing their pieces, it's not a thing yet. So right now, I don't believe in paying money for land. The people that own that 511 acres have put infrastructure on that land. They have put roads through and they have cleared fields. As far as I'm concerned, I justify it to myself by me purchasing the work they have put into that space, and it will be purchased conventionally. As soon as it is owned outright, it will be removed from the roll, which is the fancy version of what kings and queens used to have their lords, reigning over. So it'll be removed from the roll and no longer under the authority of the crown. The crown has no business here. They know everything is de facto and illegitimate. It's just up to us to step up and state that clearly and stand our ground. So once the land is purchased and it's pulled out of the roll, anybody who buys a lot or a home fire site is more accurate, and that's what we call them, the money you're actually paying for that goes into the roads, the equipment, the community projects, the buildings, the gardens, the tools, and every single thing the community needs to build every single thing in the community. Now, we can't build a wood mill right away. That's something that is purchased with the money from that. But once we have the wood mill, there are many things we can do from that point. So I'm not saying we can do everything ourselves, but once we bring in the tools or equipment that we need, we should be able to do the majority of things ourselves. So the lot or home fire site ownership isn't ownership, it's stewardship of that space. And it's the same as that man described for, oh, the words completely slipped my mind, but it's just a contract. We agree that you are the shepherd of this 1 acre. Anything you build on it is all yours. You can sell it for as much as you like, but you can't buy a home site and sell it for more money. That's so many times I get the question, well, what stops some rich guy from coming in, buying half the lots and doubling the price? Well, practice stops them from doing it. Unless you do something to the lot, you can't sell it for more. As soon as you do something to it, then you can give up the title or stewardship agreement that we all have to somebody else. And I don't know if that answers it well enough. If there's something else you'd like, please let me know.
It does. So basically what I hear from you is whoever currently has that property will be putting a patent on it. The patent will go through and it goes back to allodial and it becomes private and off the roll. So I get that. The stewardship I'm really interested in, and I won't take up too much time, but the only thing I would like, I'm doing something here in Alberta, but I'm going to be basically backpacking in a lot of ways, getting rid of everything and backpacking. But I also have an RV, and we'll be looking for somewhere in Ontario for that as well. So I hope I can reach out. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh,
Sherry?
I was muted.
Thank you. Thank you, David. That was amazing. I can't imagine how many hours you spent in making that presentation. It's incredible. My question is, I've had some dealings with Mike Reynolds back in Australia in 2011. One of the questions I had that I never had a good answer from was, given that most of those materials are recycled and so much of the labor is actually volunteered, why are those homes so expensive?
Another great question. I would say that is a matter of perspective. Is it expensive? I don't think it's expensive. Conventional homes do last 75, 100 years, and then you need a whole new mortgage because the foundation's crumbling, the shingles have gone 4 times, you need to redo the drywall, paint it, rip out the kitchen, and it's hooked up to life support systems who, for most people, don't have control over how much their heating costs or how much their hydro costs or how much their water costs, or if their water comes with brain numbing agents. So are they more expensive? I personally don't believe they're more expensive. If you go to our website and you go to the models, you can see prices for all the models. And when I look, I'm in a small town 15 minutes outside of Ottawa. And there was a 1,200 square foot bungalow that just got finished, and they're selling it for $900,000. I could build you the most beautiful 2 or 3 bedroom home, grows food with 2 greenhouses that'll last 300 or 400 years for the same price as that. So conventional homes, it's a misnomer. They're not cheaper. It's just like every other cheap thing we get now. We buy it, it doesn't last as long, we buy another one. If we bought a good one in the first place that lasted 5 times as long, it's actually cheaper. So that's how I would address that. And I've built 4 of those homes in the last 5 years, and the costs are very comparable to a conventional house. However, they grow food. There's no bills. Maybe a little bit of wood in the winter, nothing compared to a conventional home.
That is a great answer. The question I have, though, for many people going into this right now, they're not going to have even $300,000 to put towards a home. What can you use the Earthship model on to build something that is actually affordable for people who don't have those masses of cash?
It's very tricky to be able to create and build this when the current system has drained most people and most people don't have those assets.
Yeah.
Simple survival is a earthship that's small, like a 1-bedroom, almost like a studio. You could certainly build that. You don't have to build a 3-bedroom with 2 greenhouses and 2-car garage and all the rest of that stuff. That's up to us. Here in the West, and specifically here in Canada, we are used to a very decadent lifestyle, and going off grid is challenging enough for most people, let alone scaling everything down or making things simpler. We think one of the questions will probably be, if anybody remembers it, 2 acres or 1 acre is the largest lot you can be. And I always get, well, can I buy 6? No, you don't need 6 acres. 2/3 of the community is common shared land. You only think you need 6 because of the current system. So I can't solve everybody's problem. I'm not here to do that. What I am here to do is what I just demonstrated to you guys. That is absolutely why I was sent to Earth. And I hope we've had multi-million-dollar investors come in 3 times and then pull out. All it takes is for one of those people to show up, and it makes it so much more accessible to the people who aren't in a financial position to be able to do that. But that is the trick. How do you get people from this system over here when there's nothing in between? And it looks like the bridge, but the bridge doesn't address this. There's nothing in between. There's nowhere for them to stay. And what we used to do to address this was viewership in. So a whole bunch of rentals. Within the business plan was a 6 rentals where people could release their attachment, get all their energy back from the current system, get all their fiat currency out of it, put it in the community, and they would have a place to stay while their space was being created. Tiny homes is another thing that we could do now, yurts, but the mentality it takes to leave the decadency of a conventional home is so much more challenging than most people comprehend. However, World War III is going to be much more challenging for those who aren't able to make that move tonight or tomorrow or in the next week. Every day this isn't being created is one less day that we have to prepare for what's coming. And it's coming whether we like it or not. And I don't know when it's coming, but it's coming. So maybe it's a tent, maybe it's a yurt. I don't know how you get there, but I believe creation will make sure the people who are supposed to be there will be there. I don't know how I'm going to get there. I've worked on this for the last decade. I'm in a 5th wheel trailer ready to go, but I still don't know how I'm going to get there. But I absolutely believe that I will get there. And I also believe that's the only way that I'll have a good chance at survival very soon.
Well, I agree with that, and I thank you. That was a brilliant answer. I'm grateful for your contributions. Thank you. And with that, I yield.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you, Sherry. Yes, great answers. Beautiful. Christina, go ahead.
Hi, thanks, David, for being such an inspiration. I feel like I'm on the bridge since I lost my home in foreclosure. So I went through the experience of saying goodbye to the system and asking them in court to prove that that they actually own the land, first of all. But so I lost my life savings, and I've been on that path for a long time of exploring intentional communities. I've been to Damanhur in Italy. I've seen what is possible. And I believe that when enough people, when 2 minds or more are connected with the same intent, it becomes as great as the will of God got us. So we're at the point in time, like you say, there's an urgency. And so the urgency will propel us, because sometimes we need to be pushed up against the wall to make a change. And that's what's really happening. But what you've created there is like what I've been dreaming and what I've written and what I've explored, even right down to the energetic exchange where you're using sacred geometry and sacred symbolism and, you know, the elder councils as decision making. So, you know, one of the things about community is we can have the land and we can have the buildings and we can have the infrastructure, can people get along? It's like, can people get along? Because we have been conditioned for so long to be separate. So I guess one of the questions is, as something like this comes together, and I've also know Michael Tellinger's work, and I'm glad that you had those experiences because it gave you and propelled you with some great tools on the Ubuntu movement. How then do you see creating the infrastructure initially, if we're not, if people have to really let go right now, can people, this is something you're looking at in interior province, communities are getting still the powers that were in some ways. Like, how do you do this outside of the system? Like, really do this outside of the system, because you've done it individually. So can we do it collectively with the private membership associations of opting out? Like, how do you drive without a driver's license? How do you create the infrastructure without needing the insurance, which is still part of the system, or the banksters involved, or the government property taxes, or whatever, all of that stuff? How do we opt out? Because I really believe what Klaus Schwab says, you will own nothing and be happy. There's some truth to that. As we could steward the land, but if we don't own it, who does? So we, how do we come together and do that part of cohesive ownership or not ownership, stewardship? There's a lot of questions in here. I know that.
I knew the questions were going to be the best, so I'll probably go off on a tangent, and then when I'm done,
okay, I did too.
Bring me back. How do we not do it that way now? That would be the simplest way I ask that. Like, I comprehend, and most of the time you won't hear me say understand, because that is a very dangerous word. I don't stand for many things. I comprehend that. Well, I'm going to guess that the age in this group, and I can't see the other 3 pages, is around 50 years old. I'm 40. There has been decades of brainwashing that is such a question that everybody wants answered, but it's not even something we need to address. All those things don't exist. Permission is for children. I'm responsible for my sons, so they need to ask me permission. If you are a child and the government would like us to believe we are their children, then you ask their permission. How do we not ask their permission? We don't. That's how they get us in the first place. If you ask their permission by contracting with them, whether it be a building contract or license contract, that is you saying, I'm this fictional character, I'm this person, I give you permission to decide the rules for me. So you don't enter into those contracts in the first place. Two of the 4 buildings that I built in the last 4 years, 2 of them had no permits whatsoever. No insurance, no nothing. I take responsibility, and that is very scary for most people. So it's not a question of how do we do it, you just do it, and it has to be done. If it's not done this way, they still have control, and that is slavery. I'm not interested in being anybody's slave any longer than I need to be. I can see the door and I'm headed to it, but unless there's 20 or 30 other people coming with me through the door, I probably am not going to make it out the door. So that's why it has to be a community. That's why I gave up on me building my own house by myself somewhere. I really love my alone time the majority of the time, but then, there's 82 people here. I love this too for its moments, but I need a community no matter where I go. So it's not about asking permission. You just do it. I've been building since I was 15. So that's 25 years I've been building. So the creating it part is easy. I bet you there's people on this call who are also in the building industry, building the roads, the houses, the blah, blah, blah. That is so simple. If someone put down, said, here's the 511 acres, David, I would take off like the road runner, and the pure joy would keep me working 16 hours a day, because it's what I love to do and what I want to do. And you wouldn't be able to stop me from creating this space, especially if we have access to the tools and equipment. So but it's a mental thing. What you're asking me is a mental thing. Each person needs to fully comprehend that they are not children anymore, even though most of us are, because we have not been taught how to be adults. Most of us don't need to be children anymore, and now is the time to learn to stand up as an adult and stop asking other people's permission to do things. That doesn't mean cause harm or loss. You can't do whatever you want to people, but I'm a 40-year-old man. I am not asking some asshole who taught drama for 6 months, who pretends to run the country, if I'm allowed to live the way I want to live, as long as it's not causing anybody else harm. He has nothing to do with anything I do. And I'm sure he'll come get me shortly, but at least this is out there now and people know this stuff. And anybody who's tried to contact, we are completely blocked. YouTube, emails. I can't believe Karen got through. That must have been an act of God, because we are completely blocked on every level from communicating with people.
Awesome. Well, Einstein said imagination is greater than knowledge, and we're at that place where we need to use our imagination and create what we know is in our world. It's like, I don't need anybody's permission. Thanks for that. You're doing awesome, and we stand with you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. That was great. Okay, Claudia, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, just listening. Fabulous. Much love from here, David.
Thank you.
Hey, okay, so just grabbing you while you said you would just build a house. You know, a long time ago, 2 properties back, somebody gave us an old structure and we got it for free. We pulled it to our house. And I tell you, I don't know who tattled on us, but somebody told the county that was this decrepit building, we were just going to use it to make it new. And so the county wrote us a letter, if you don't, you have to pay for us bulldozing it, right? And we were not as educated as we are now. But would you ignore that? Or would you have something to say? Because I know we are way more embroiled in the whole thing than you are. Good for you. But yeah, first
Yeah,
question.
I've had a few good teachers. White Walking Feather said an amazing thing, and I apply it anytime I'm thinking of a circumstance like that. And it's, can you imagine if someone said that to the Queen? She would tell them to take a hike. Who are you talking to me like that? And the letter they're sending out to you is their offer to contract.
Yeah, I know better now.
I don't want to give you specifics on how to send that back to them. You don't need to acknowledge it. That's like me saying, hey, give me money because I say so, or a debt collector that has no right to collect imaginary debt on someone else's behalf. But they used to respect people with that knowledge, and that is disappearing now from what I've seen. They're just taking people out, right? Pat King is still in jail, and he do a single thing. He's only 20 minutes east of me. So the time of addressing them through letters may be over because it's getting so close to that point. But that's how we address them. We address them through our documentation. And it took me and my amazing friend and other friends months and a few years to realize that we didn't even need to speak their language. I'm not interested in speaking legalese. You guys made that shit up. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Kid, person, child included. I have no interest in playing your mind games. This is how I speak. And I'd be happy to share the letter I sent to the school board because of what they were doing to my sons, and calling out the principals there. I've learned to just speak mostly from the heart, but very clearly. They don't have a right to do this, and you will be held accountable eventually. I will hold you accountable. Very soon, I don't want to get into Germany because I think lots of that was bullshit too, but the alliance of good guys, you know, they started holding people accountable. That's going to start happening all over the world. People are going to start holding these people accountable, all the way down to the teacher who forced masks on children.
Mhm.
Don't sign anything. Don't ever use your signature again.
Hmm.
And that's very hard. I'm lucky enough to have someone who still has bank accounts, and she does have to do that.
Mhm.
But I don't have to. And once we all move there, then we don't have to very much anymore. Cash will still be king, whether they outlaw it or not. But I think that time of addressing them politely is over. And don't ever sign anything they send, because you're probably agreeing to them being the authority over you.
I know. And it was here in the comments. I like the word understand and overstand, right? We don't understand. But yeah, I know. We sign stuff constantly. We farm. Okay, two more questions for me. Have you ever heard of primary water? Because you're talking about water, and the water that's groundwater is a lot polluted, right? Have you ever heard of primary water, that there may be some water a bit deeper that is the living water?
No, but
No.
I've studied resonance and how you can bring water right back to life. So this is what I mean. We tonight, I've been doing this a decade, and I was sent on earth to do it. So I don't expect to be able to explain it, but we looked at the community from 1,000 feet above tonight.
Mhm.
There's no piece of equipment that if you drive through the forest will sever the mycelial connections in the forest, because as soon as you do that, the forests aren't connected anymore. There's no roads that go in loops, because then that section of the forest would be cut off. There's vortex systems in the cisterns to keep the water alive. There are so many details that we didn't even start to get into tonight that have been thought up and addressed and readdressed. And I haven't heard of that, but I do know that everything is based on frequency, and we can make any water, catch the rainwater, put it in the cistern, we can bring it right back to life.
Would
So
you
I don't want
share
to
that?
tap into anything.
Would you share that with us? Because I know I have a few friends, actually a lot of my friends, we love where we are. So I'm personally, when I want community, I go get together with my friends. So this is not necessarily for me, but I want a greenhouse, and I want to grow for other people, for sure. Yeah. Could we contact you? Would you share that with us?
If you can get in contact with me. You can try. I promise you can try through the website, but they know who I am. They know what I'm doing. I'm not even allowed to comment on things. Like I said, I can't believe Karen got a hold of me. It's the first email I've gotten about 3 months. And that doesn't make any sense considering what we're working on and the state of the world right now. So please try. Maybe Karen can, if you can't get a hold of me, maybe, I'm sure Karen's very busy, but maybe she can facilitate something. Or maybe we can do another presentation on the buildings or
That would be
something
great
like that.
idea.
Or
Yeah.
we can have you on the energy think tank on Thursday.
You know, there's so
Yeah.
many groups out there.
Hmm?
I know where I'm going. I know what I'm doing, and the people, it's not, no, does that sound arrogant? It doesn't matter. I'm not interested in think tanks anymore. I've thought about the mycelial connections and the weight of the equipment that's going through the forest, or keeping water alive, or the company is called Talking Trees. Like we've done a decade of think tanks, and I'm sure new things will come up in the community, but
Yeah.
now people are too intellectual. There's
No.
not enough physical participation in the physical reality that your spirit agreed to be in. There's too much, as far as I'm concerned, there's a little too much focus on spirit and ignoring where we actually are in the physical reality our spirit wants us to enjoy, because it can't do it from the place that it comes from. We're not focused on the physical reality like I believe we should. So like I said, Roadrunner to the forest building, think tanks and stuff. I'm happy to share information, but we're ready to go. We don't need
Yeah.
to think anymore. We need action.
And,
Yeah,
and that word,
we'll have David on again, absolutely, and we'll take a deeper dive. Because as we're moving forward, we're going to be taking more inspired action in our think tanks too. So yeah, thank you, Claudia.
yeah. And I want to clarify the think tank, sorry, because I know it's a misused word and it's overused and everything, but you've seen what the people ask you tonight, right? So the think tank that we have on Thursdays, you better believe we are working all on our stuff at home. Absolutely. So no, I just wanted you to, we are looking for practical use now, the total road runner. So that's what Dwayne does on Thursdays, right? Every 2 weeks. But yeah, just to have you and explain it to us, because we're tired of people who do say, oh, this works, you know, the stuff on YouTube that never works. We want to build it now and help each other out and get off the rat race.
It's
Okay.
time for freedom.
Yeah. With that, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Claudia. Brian, go ahead.
Hello, Dave. Dave or David, whatever you like. There's a subject here that focuses on my interest. You're traveling in your automobile without registration, license plate, and I imagine you don't have insurance because with insurance, it's not legal unless you have a driver's license. So with all this in mind, I've dug into this in great depth, and I can see this history in the United States, and I haven't seen anything that's valid in Canada. I've done the dance in court several times, and I'm so curious if, like, the corruption behind all of this stuff should be fundamentally easily overcome. And I think this would be a great weapon to expose the massive corruption of, say, government in general, with just this licensing and vehicle registration, license plates, etc. So do you have some experience? I don't expect you to get into any depth, but brief experience on, or where I can find more information on how to overcome this tyranny.
Yeah, that is a huge part. Being sovereign is that's what we learned in North Frontenac. The mayor taught me that anybody working in that system will never be able to create something that makes that system obsolete. They just won't be able to do it. They can't do it. So that's where sovereignty really came in. The car does have insurance. It has plates. It has all the rest of that stuff because it's not in my name. When I drive, I don't have a driver's license. I don't have a wallet. I don't have a single, do I have a card? I don't have a single card. I'm just, Dave gets in the car and drives and go picks up his sons and we go to soccer or whatever it is. Now, insurance uses, I'm always weighing the risks and I'm always very alert and careful while I'm driving. I might go 10 kilometers over the speed limit. I'm always stopping. I'm always signaling. I don't do anything to draw their attention because they don't comprehend that I don't need a license. The police are trained, the policy officers are trained a specific way, and they don't comprehend it. So it wouldn't be until I got to court where I actually explain myself. So I haven't come up to the circumstance where they pull me out of the car and hold me for 24 hours while I answer none of their questions.
Mhm.
I have dealt with the courts, the kangaroo courts, and the people who play dress up as adults and proclaim to have authority over others. But those McDonald's courts, they don't even acknowledge it. I went there for my sons and to address the municipality when they came in and told us that we weren't allowed to build a greenhouse. Letters worked for the building. However, when it comes to kids, the courts are so corrupt that they will do everything in their power to make sure someone like me isn't with their children. And I know children's their word, but with my sons. So right now it's You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. You just have to weigh the risks. I don't drive unnecessarily. I'm always careful. I have lots of experience, blah, blah, blah. Now, knowledge, I would go to a warriorcalls.com. He's in Ontario. And I believe White Walking Feather, who was in Alberta and is now also in Ontario, these two men, as far as I'm concerned, have every aspect of common law covered, recorded, written down that you would want to study, and discussion groups and presentations a few times a week. That's where I got my knowledge, these two men, and working with the Sovereign Squamish Nation in British Columbia. So but it's taken 3 years. At the beginning, I was trying to be so careful about how I wrote things, and oh, don't call me this name and this name because then they have me. That's not really how it works, and they really don't give a shit anymore. Downtown Ottawa showed us rights don't matter, sovereign doesn't matter. The Indigenous were sovereign when we showed up. That didn't matter. We signed fake contracts and took the land anyway. So just using your moral judgment. Do you need to be doing it? Does it need to be a trip you take? Are you willing to spend the 24 hours in custody, not answering their questions, because that's very difficult for people, not to speak to the policy officers, and then they have to let you go, or they proclaim that you're critically or mentally insane, and then you have to undergo 3 days of some therapist talking to you. These are all things that I'm willing to do because I'm not willing to sign any contract with them. So we all have to make decisions. I realize some people won't be comfortable doing that, but at some point, you're either getting your digital ID that has all that on it and it's injected wherever they're going to inject it, or you step outside of their square into your circle, where you can't cut corners because you're in a circle. This is your space. This is where you stand, and you stand your ground. And it doesn't have to be violent, but you need to know where you stand, which is why I did the first half of the presentation the way I did. But those two, a Warrior Calls and the Pace Arts, amazing, amazing amount of information.
A Warrior Calls, and which other one?
I don't know his website, but it's the Pace Arts, and Cindy actually mentioned it and had a slide in the bridge, in the last bridge presentation.
Thank you.
Decolonization is also a big part of the Pace Arts, and that is more important. That, like communication and conflict resolution, decolonization is one of the most important things we can be doing right now, because it's like that, how do we do things without permission question. Once you go into decolonization, that question isn't a question anymore, because you realize that was put in your mind by other people. So that's a huge thing, decolonizing from this incredibly abusive system.
If everybody started driving without or traveling without a license, that would be a huge awakening and exposure of the corruption that's going on a massive scale.
Imagine you didn't have to, though. Think about how much time, the most precious resource, we spend traveling. It's almost insane to me, because I've done it. If you're, I'm not saying don't leave the community, don't become a hermit, but if you have 500 people and you're completely fulfilled and the only thing you want to go outside for is to visit people or travel, how much driving are you doing anymore? You hop on your horse? I'm riding my horse to whatever house I have to build. I'm not getting in a car. The only reason a vehicle would come into the community is to drop off people's furniture or drop off building materials. I don't see people getting in automobiles anymore. Automobiles are one of the most destructive aspects of a community that exist. They point houses at them. They point houses at the pavement. Why would you point a house at the pavement? Why wouldn't you point it towards the sun so it gets heated? Because their thinking is so messed up, they can't even think past pointed at the street so your car can pull right in, because everything's based around moving and traveling. I don't think people are going to be driving very much in the community. And this is my personal perspective on this, but a good way to call them out would be to call out the giant fraud that we've been living under for the last 2.5 years. And Christopher James, that is his purpose on earth, is to hold those people responsible in Canada and call out the massive fraud and genocide that is happening now. And yet we're still getting our coffee at Starbucks. There's genocide occurring and huge trespass. And we're so comfortable here still, even with gas at $2 and everything, food starting to get scarce, that we won't step out of our comfort thing. And I'm sorry, but that reminds me of I'm happy to stay on here for 9 hours. But one point I wanted to make tonight was, when you were born, someone bought you a ticket and they put your name on it in capital letters, and that ticket was going to take you to death. And what I'm seeing most people do is, even though they know the plane is bullshit and the destination is pointless, the ticket's been booked and they're too afraid to jump off the plane. They have a parachute. They know they'll be safe. They'll land somewhere strange, which is a little scary, and jumping out of a plane is a little scary, but they'll be safe. But rather than jump off the plane into something new, most of us are staying in the safe plane, our houses, and trying to get a refund on the ticket because we don't like where it's going to crash. Letting go of where we are is the hardest thing. And I think most of the people I can see are in houses. You're very comfortable. A trailer is very different. I've been in here for 3 years. And I think it's going to get a lot more uncomfortable for people. The sooner you can jump out of the plane and stop arguing for a partial refund on your ticket, the faster you're going to actually get to live the way you want to live. I just had to make sure that got in there.
I'm glad you expressed that, Dave.
I hope that helped, Brian. Those resources are amazing, and
I've investigated this in great depth, and thanks for those resources.
Thank you. Everything that you're sharing with us, we've been talking about this for about 2 years, but it's so important for all of us to hear it again and again and again, so that we embody the information, embody the knowledge, and then we become. So appreciate it. Thank you. I'm not too sure who this is. 705. The phone number who's asking a question.
705-750. Out on the porch.
Yeah.
She's muted.
There she
Yeah,
is.
how about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so, you're talking about foundations and how important the foundations are. This land you're looking at, the 511 acres, what elevation is it at?
Above sea level.
Yes,
The elevation that I'm given on the mapping is, I don't know, 80 meters.
80 meters. Okay, we all know what's happening with the planet, and the caps are melting, the oceans are rising, water always has to equalize. There's some concern and some future mapping that, unless you're at least 800 feet above sea level, you could end up when Mother Nature finally turns over, in the wrong place.
I appreciate that question. I've thought about that because it's something I used to consider. And the fairest way I can think to answer this is, I call their bullshit. Then why are all the billionaires building seafront mansions? Why would they be building mansions on the ocean front if the ocean front is going to rise? Now, if we look back at that dick who never got to be president, Florida is supposed to be pretty underwater right now or very shortly. So my experience, my 5 senses tell me that maybe it'll rise a little, but that is BS, just like every other single thing they push. If they push it, I question it very, very strongly. Every single thing that is pushed in school or by a government, I am immediately suspect of, especially when there's huge, especially when there's huge money to be made with shots, with global warming. How convenient global warming is that we need to pay carbon tax now. We're all carbon based. Carbon is not the issue. The destruction of the earth and the way we live is the issue. If you look at that community, all 8 billion, if there is 8 billion people on the planet, I don't know, I got to take their word for it. If there is 8 billion people, all of them can live that way. We don't need cities. Where do they think all the food comes from and all the shit goes? All the land is being raped, because that's the perfect word, and all the people are being put up in their false ivory tower prisons. Every single thing they say, I call bullshit until I can verify it for myself. And I don't, that is not conspiracy to me. That is a healthy perspective to have for any stranger proclaiming they have information that I need to change the way I live on Earth because of this information. And they should stop building seaside mansions. They're kind of giving away the fact that it's not really going to rise.
So when we see these documentaries and you know, these environmental groups that are recording the polar caps melting and breaking off and that, you don't believe this?
I absolutely believe that ice melts. I believe the Earth is going through a cycle it's gone through who knows how many times. I don't believe whoever created this space would, I don't believe it would melt everybody away. That doesn't make sense, because there's so many other species other than just the self-indulgent, self-important humans who also share this space. We're going to build a boat to get on, to get out of the way. So yes, maybe things are melting, but that's all part of the process. Now, if you believe in the dinosaurs, apparently it was very hot back then, which means all the ice caps should have melted and there should have been no land for the dinosaurs. They should have all been amphibious. So yes, things are melting, but then in the winter, things freeze again. So I don't see them talking about how many things freeze. They just make sure you look through this keyhole so you don't see the rest of the information. All they show you is some ice breaking off. We're telling you this, and just I don't buy it, and I don't come, any solution that comes from a place of fear isn't going to work. But I believe that at one point, and I had to let it go. God, universe, whatever, is not going to send me here. So right in time for, I have a kid that's going to be here any moment, and they're not coming here so they can live in water world. That just doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I don't mean to be dismissive. We just don't have time to play games anymore. So I need to be direct and honest about how I feel about things, because I feel like that's why I was asked to be here. Whether people agree or not, that's up to you guys.
I like everything you have to say, but I am concerned about, you know, the ecosystem on the planet. And it's not the governments that, it's not their websites or the news or anything like that that I listen to. It's the groups that are actually going out there in their boats, documenting things, marine biologists, showing what's going on with, pretty much everything, the breaking down of our, you know, the whole system, the whole oceanic system. Yeah, so that's, I was just wondering where you were at as far as, you know, the elevation of things and water equalizing on the planet after it's completely melted.
I would just always ask, who's funding it and where were these people educated? So it takes a lot of funding to go out and do those things, and it takes a lot of, it's not education. It takes a lot of indoctrination in order to become a marine biologist or whomever else might be studying those things. When you spend that long in a system designed to brainwash people, they'll believe anything. It's like a religion. It is absolutely like a religion. Netflix just put on a thing about happy, healthy, love something. And these people actually believe that there's a man that's a prophet who is absolutely disgusting and in jail right now, and believe without a doubt because they were taught that since they were children. People will believe anything if you get to control what they learn up until 9 and beyond that, which is why school is the way it is. The biggest trick the government and Marxists ever played on women was women's equal rights. Let's get women away from their children, put them into the job market that we control so they'll become our slaves. Then we get to teach their children what to think. And it was brilliant and disgusting. Now, I'm not saying women shouldn't be able to do whatever they want, but that move to pull mothers away from children to come be slaves to their system so they can raise the kids, so the government can raise the kids, was brilliant. So yes, people who have gone to university for a long time think they are very clever because they have been told what to regurgitate, and if they do good at it, they think they actually know that thing. I made it to grade 7. I am the dumbest person you will ever meet. I have no formal education, but I do question everything, and I like to find out for myself. I don't like taking people's word for anything. If I can't testify to it, I have no right speaking about it. So water rising, I'm more worried about the guys with guns who have been brainwashed to think they're freeing Canadians when they're mowing them down. I want to make sure I'm with a group of people where I have more protection in a community rather than individual targets in our houses right now, because they just come take people. I'd rather be in a community of people where I'm safe. That's global warming. I'm not worried about it. I know they rape the planet. I don't like the way they behave on the planet. But that's not the thing we got to solve. The thing we got to solve is the raping of the planet, not the melting ice caps. They'll take care of themselves. George Carlin said, the only reason humans were created was because the earth couldn't figure out how to make plastic, and it needed people to make plastic for it. And once we made plastic, the earth was free to wipe off the people because now it had all the plastic it needed. We are just so like egocentric that we think we can solve these problems, and we're here for like that long. We're just global warming, maybe in 1,000 years, maybe that's part of the cycle, but I'm not worried about it right now. I'm just here to do my part to make the plastic for the earth and have some kids, and then, after that, I'm not here anymore. So that's why I got to think 7 generations ahead.
Beautiful. Thank you. Great questions. We have a few more. Do you have time?
This is what my purpose. This is why I'm here.
I love it. Okay, good. Trevor, go ahead.
What?
Well, thank you for that presentation. That was awesome. And yeah, definitely feeling like this is exactly what's needed to break off into our sovereign communities and create all our own means. But, speaking, I think, from a position that a lot of people are in, like myself, for example, I don't have a lot of resources. I came late to the saving and investing game, corrupt as that is. It still gave you some resources, but I came late to that game, don't have a lot of resources. It's like, how do I get even into your, it's like even the base level of where you're talking about, it's like, I don't have much time left, and I don't have the resources. Like
Financially, you mean?
Yeah, like what would I do? What would you do in my position? It's like I want to get into this community, but I don't have the resources right now, and there's not enough time left to really make them.
I'm in your position. I'm in a trailer beside 3 generations of houses of my family. I sold everything I had, bought this, and I focused on this. I don't have $11,000 for a lot. I have a water filtration system, solar power. I don't have to go to a slave job. I got food. I got that. If I knew how I was going to get there, it wouldn't be fun. So I have no idea how we're supposed to get there. But I do know 3 times millionaires have stepped up to pay for everything. I had an individual investor. We had a group and the Sovereign Squamish. I mean, when Ubuntu was doing that thing, I saw the check for millions of dollars, and then it all fell through, which is good. We needed to learn some things. money is not the issue. Money is our issue. There's lots of money out there, and there's 78 people left on the call. If 10 of them had houses worth $500,000 and they let go of the system tomorrow, that's $5 million that, boom, it's all done. Whoever needs to show up will get there. You'll set up tents. We'll do whatever we need to do, because it's going to get a lot worse real soon. But there's people like you and me who are younger men, and we have abilities and talents that other people with money don't have. So that is an aspect that one or a few other people are going to bring to this. That's not my job. I don't think it's your job. There's people with money, when they're ready to show up, because they'll get hungry too, then it'll be time to go. But I don't have $11,000. I don't have a bank account. Where would I keep $11,000? I don't need money. I need things. I need tools, equipment, and land to plant my feet and seeds. That's what I need. But there's people out there who own their homes. I bet you they're thinking about it right now. Wow, you know, the market's super hot. If I sold my house and $500,000's low, you would have to live in a yurt to sell land for $500,000. So $750,000. There are millions of dollars worth of assets sitting on this phone call right now. All they had to do is let go of that world, which is the scariest thing for people to do. They want to argue about getting a refund for the ticket instead of jumping out with the parachute and landing somewhere new, which is scary but safe. That's the trick. We don't have to do that. Don't concern yourself with money. Money is everywhere. They make shit up, more shit up every day. That's not the issue. Those people are out there, and they'll come to the table when they're supposed to.
All right, that's an awesome perspective shifter. Thank you. With that, I yield.
Thank you, Trevor. Okay, so who's here ready to sell their home?
I mean, are you waiting for the market to crash? It's all going to collapse very soon.
Yes.
We all must see that by now, that this is going one way, and it's more severe slavery. If you live in a home now, you're not going to own it for long. In the next 12, 24 months, they'll make up some rule where they get to take your home, just like they've done in Ireland to house all the people displaced by war. Now the Irish can't even own a second home or a cottage. It's being taken from them. So if you think it's not coming here, I hope God gives you an awakening and shows you that it's coming, and let go of that. Let's build some new stuff that actually lasts. Put your energy behind something you actually believe in instead of this system.
Love it. Brown Bear, go ahead. You're muted.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening and greetings to everybody. My name is Ancient Brown Bear Child. I am the leader of the original Bear Clan from the Lakota Sioux Hyoka tribe, Deja. Deja is the land of new beginnings and peaceful sunrises. I have been working closely with my matriarchs within the indigenous nations from coast to coast. Everything that you've spoken of tonight, this evening, sir, is quite on track. Your pinpointed focus is recognized. I acknowledge you for your brilliance. I acknowledge you for your diligence, for your passion, and for your knowing. And today is a wonderful day, and I am so pleased to meet you because you are a way shower. And what you've done this evening is you've opened people's eyes towards a new way of looking at things. And I want to just say, with my hands over my heart and with the rhythms that I feel within Mother Earth, you are connected. I acknowledge you. I am appreciative for your knowing, and I'm appreciative for your rising today to open people's eyes to a new beginning. And today is our new beginning when we choose to step into it. And it is important for people to appreciate today we are sovereign, as we have always been. It is no longer It is no longer a thinking or a wondering or asking permission to someone else to say, how should I lead my life? This is our moment in time where we get to step into our strength, and each and every one of us has it when we have faith in the unknown, but in the knowing that with a focused, mass conscious shift, we are capable of doing anything and everything together. The secret is alignment. And when we know where we're going, ain't nothing gonna stop us. And David, I thank you for stepping up to bat and being a leader. And I look forward to getting to know you. And with that, I yield. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone.
Wow. I don't have words. I'm going to need to process that because I don't have words.
Brown Bear always brings beautiful gifts.
Speechless, and I've been talking for the last hour and a half.
Beautiful.
Welcome to the Bear Clan. I appreciate all that you've given to us this evening. And so step up to bat, milk it for all it's worth. And you got to know, keep smiling, keep laughing, keep those belly laughs going. And remember, it's all about the dance. And we got to just keep on moving forward. And that's all there is to it. There ain't no looking back now.
There's no time.
So true.
No time like the now.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for your words. Beautiful. Francois, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say hi to David, and also that he did a bang up kick butt job for tonight. So I want to give my hats off to him as always, and say hi to Mayford.
You handsome devil, you. I will. I think she heard you there. That is an amazingly brave man right there who learned to stand his ground in the most challenging circumstance, one of the most challenging circumstances you can be learning to stand your ground. And he won't stop now. Something clicked in him, and I don't know when it did in the last year or 2 or 3. And I see these people waking up, and he left the other world too. This is an amazing time to be alive. I guess that's why we chose to be here now. Everybody, there's 8 million people want front row seats to what's about to take place here.
Well, we'll definitely have to have Francois share his story.
Oh,
America.
I just wanted to also say, David, that based on the EE at this point, I think I owe you, and all of us owe you, about $216 each. So I'm looking forward to the day that I can say it's my turn in one way or another, because I think you've paid it forward in a way that is an amazing thing. And you are right. I stayed home with my children, and I ran a business for 25 years. And there was nothing that was going to come between me and my children. And anyone who stands with their children is okay by me. So I am going to head out to Ontario at one point, and I will be looking forward to meeting whoever's involved in this project. And if it's meant to be that I am, I'll know that it is. And you're right, money is nothing. What each of us does and how we come together is all that matters. So thank you so much for everything.
thank you.
Beautiful words. Thank you. Claudia.
Yeah, I just had one more thing to say to David. David, if you don't already know Amanda Vollmer, you have to meet her.
I do know of Amanda Vollmer. I appreciate the knowledge and expertise she has when it comes to health.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I used to reach out to people to try and get them like leaders in each of the 13 aspects that need leaders. But I stopped doing that because I don't think I need to do that. But she is the one I thought of when it came to health. And she's in Peterborough. She would be about an hour and a half away from where this land is.
Yeah, and you said you had no health care, right? So she's starting to teach classes. I mean, I love every one of her videos, and she's dead on, right on the mark, right?
She doesn't have time to play either. He
Nope,
says
that's
it.
right.
If you don't like it, that's too bad for you. I'm gonna say what I think right now because we don't have time to play games anymore.
And I think she has it right on that she wants to teach that we do it ourselves. I like that, because we have to know the triage if we are on our own. If I'm not going to the doctor either, but yep, I still have relatives that I'm embroiled with in the system. And yep, I'm banned. I'm not getting into the old folks home. But, that's too bad. I'll see my mother-in-law when she gets wheeled out. But yes, I love what Amanda's teaching.
Health is huge. I mean, she's 40 weeks pregnant. You guys can't see where I'm pointing, but she's 40 weeks pregnant. We don't know what it is. We're not going into their realm. I have no interest in something so natural as a human being coming here, being a medical procedure. I'm not interested in. So think about this for a moment. There are people, human beings coming into this space now that will never have to unravel themselves from the fictional things that we're all wrapped up in. It'll never be certified as a ship birth. There's no fictional character going to be draped over this being. They'll never have to unwind from that stuff. And I'm sure I'll still pass on some trauma, but the trauma will be so far less than schools and daycares and strangers. And imagine being a child growing up in this community and you don't, you're actually free. And that's the way you've been the whole time. That's the people, because what kind of crazy bugger would come here now? They must know something I don't know. And that's that this will succeed. Otherwise, why would they choose to come now? It doesn't make sense.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah. With that, I yield.
Thank you, Claudia. And one more, tour guy.
Good evening. Thank you, David. That was just truly an inspirational vision, and I love the practical aspect of your approach. It's really beautiful. One of the things that I put up a question earlier in the chat, and it was with respect to much of my life. I've actually spent many years working with the disenfranchised, whether it be in a psych hospital or penitentiary or street kids or whatever. And right now, one of my thoughts that was going through my mind was how do we take care of the elderly in this scenario, especially those who don't have the means, who've maybe lost everything. And there's one example right now that a dear friend of mine, she and her mother actually own a house, and her mother's like around 90 years old, and she was being abused by her partner, and she's basically now living with her daughter, and they're going through a terrible court process, in which the abuser and unfortunately one of her sons is involved in this as well. They're being given the right to have squatters' rights in this house, and so this mother can't actually go back into her own house, and so it just brings up this big question of how do we take care of the elderly? I just turned 69, and my gifts come through my writing and my music and so on, and that's what I have to give and to share, to inspire people. So it goes through my mind. I have nothing. I'm living on a pension, a small pension, from having, and so even with that, with the system and the fiat dollar disappearing, I can see that I will be potentially in this place where I will not have this little bit of security that allows me to to get through each month. So, and I'm not out to make a lot of money, even when I perform and so on. It's not about getting rich. It's not about any of that stuff. So, so yeah, I just bring that question about how do us older folkies, deal with all of this, and how do we protect the elderly? Yeah.
That's probably the perfect last question. And I say probably, obviously it is, because it is. I mentioned that there's 3 generations right here on land that was originally a farm that was given to ancestors I don't even know the names of. My grandparents are farthest away. They're in their 80s. They got all their experimental injections and have experienced so many health complications, including stroke and dementia now in the last 12 months. And I imagine that it's almost like a gift that they get to leave, but there are those who didn't go through that, who aren't physically able to participate in the community the way people might think you need to. But there's lots of physical strength out there. The simple answer is sometimes we just need a little compassion, and there's people out there who just want to help take care of other people. That's their purpose here. They don't need to do anything else. They want to help take care of other people. Now, funnily enough, I am right across the street from an old age home, and I saw it locked down for 2 years, and I saw people not go in there. And it's beside a high school and also beside a public school. So I think we're all aware that this system is very good at segregating people into as many different tiny groups as possible. Keep the kids away from the old people, keep the teenagers away from the old people, send all the adults into the city all day so they can work, and then they can come back and be too exhausted to even participate with the young, middle, old people. I'd like to say that they have knowledge that they can share with people, or maybe even an ear, but even if they don't have that, it doesn't matter. Like I said, there's people that just want to take care of them. So in the community, that doesn't exist, right? There's no building for the old people, and no building for the kids, and no building for the teenagers. That's not a community. That's a fancy prison that you can kind of go in and out of at will. If someone is supposed to be in this particular community, and I tried to frame all this as, take this, design whatever you want wherever you are. Not everybody needs to come to Ontario, as much as I would like 80 people to come to Ontario, because then we'd have $30 million and we'd show the world you don't have to live like this anymore. But that, I don't believe that's going to happen. So hopefully people can take all these things and apply them in their world. One lady said she likes to, Claudia said she likes to be with her friends. She's not going to move. Life might force you to not be where you are. It might force you to be closer community to your friends, and they would be able to take care of the older people in their circle. There's lots of people that want to do it.
Can I throw that in there? We did have the mother-in-law that I can't see now. She lived with us. And she had her own quarters because she used to live all alone. She just wouldn't, we couldn't live in the same house, no way. So she had her own little house on the property. So that I agree, I like the Japanese style, right? I would love my grandson here, but that's Grand Prairie. No way, we'll never get him. But yes, I would love family here and then build from there. But yeah.
I think people will be taken care of if they're supposed to be. We don't have to worry about that. In the community, it's not even a thought. It'll just be something that takes place.
If I may just add, David, in fact, you just affirmed something that that I just experienced yesterday. I had a gathering I usually, when it's my birthday, I usually just have a very quiet time. And this time around, I put out a message to a number of people that I've come to know since I traveled from Toronto to Alberta, and I've been here for about 5 or 6 years now. And I was absolutely blown away and overwhelmed by the tremendous love and support that I received yesterday. And so you just affirmed that to me. And yeah, I think, and then the big message that it's saying to me, and I say this very, very humbly, when you give from your heart and you live from a place of deep integrity and compassion, there's unknown numbers of people that will come and really support you and really be there for you. And yesterday I was brought to tears to witness what took place. And so yeah, I agree with you. I do. I have a tremendous amount of faith in the beautiful synchronicity of life. And so thanks for sharing what you have. Yeah.
My pleasure. I think that's actually human nature. Competition, that's not human nature. Not really. I think we have to be, when an emergency happens, like when the power went out here in Ottawa after that big storm, people want to help people. Just most of the time, they're too busy. Our default is love, help, support, take care of, create. It takes a lot to pull us out of it. Like in the presentation, everything has to be inverted for us not to be that way. Karen, I can't believe you. This is amazing space that you get to shepherd. This is very cool. I really appreciate you asking me to be here and facilitating the creation of the presentation. Even it's a gift.
Thank you so much for being here, David. We all appreciate you, and I've been so looking forward to this evening and sharing you with everyone. And I want to share with everyone too that our LifeForce Canada website is being redesigned. Jade is doing that right now. And so we're going to be able to have a resource center on that page. And I'm going to be sharing everything that David offers on our site as well. And thank you. Thank you for following your heart, your passion. Thank you for your time. And we so look forward to seeing you again, David. And I just love your, what do you say, your principles, your 6 principles, and how everything that we do, we need to ask, how is this going to affect 7 generations? And that speaks to, I have a quote here from, her name is Karen Armstrong, and she talks about, she's a founder of the Charter for Compassion. And she reminds me of you in many ways. And she says, I believe if we're motivated by the golden rule to treat others as you like to be treated, communities can become committed to making compassion a driving force, which would definitely impact the well-being of all members, and that beneath conflict and indifference, there runs a deep river of compassion, of loving kindness, waiting to be tapped and released into action that would alleviate so much of the suffering that we see today. And to me, when I read this, it just reminds me of your beautiful heart. So thank you very much for being here, and lots of love to you and your growing family. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for your time. That was awesome.
And thank you, everyone, for being here and joining us again on a Monday evening. I look forward to everyone who is going to be on the Alberta call tomorrow. We have some exciting things happening. Sherry Strong is going to be sharing. And next week, we're going to be talking about private membership associations. LJ is going to be sharing. Also, we have Alan, who is a director for a Canadian Health Alliance, and a woman who's created a PMA for a health clinic as well. So we have lots going on. And again, thank you everyone for being here. I was going to give a meditation tonight, but we ran over time. So make sure that you take time after the call to sit in silence and breathe in that life force energy, everyone. Lots of love to everyone. Together we rise.
Thanks, Karen. Good night,
Thanks,
everyone.
Karen. Good night.
Thank you. Great
Namaste.
presentation.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good
David.
night.
Thanks,
David.
David.
Great call.
What a great
Thank
call.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Karen.
Blessings.
Thank you.
Love you all.
Good night.
Love you.
Thank you. Good night.